By me though.
Roger, Gadigan, Jacob, how are you, mate?
Hey, I'm good, and I can hear you too. So cool.
Okay, here, man. Awesome. All right. So this is a quick impromptu space. So thanks everyone for jumping in. I just reposted then. Jacob, if you could also repost that,
Yeah,
and I might,
absolutely.
uh, yeah, let's go for that. Done. Cool. G'day, Anthony, Chris, Rooney's, PK, Frank, Bug, and Vicky. So Jake and I are just going to quickly talk about some of the THORChain network design considerations that we made. And I'm going to answer all of Jacob's questions, and hopefully you guys get to listen in and see why we do it.
Awesome. Thanks. So yeah, actually I
Cool.
wanted to ask
So
about the
go for it.
churning.
Yeah. So the main question was what is churning? So back in 2018, the main network at the time design was Cosmos. Actually, it was EOS. EOS was the main proof of stake network back then, and I looked at EOS and I didn't like it at all because it was delegated proof of stake, so the node operators didn't have to put much capital on themselves. They could run huge marketing campaigns and get huge amounts of delegated proof of stake to them, which would basically, the node operators didn't have much funds at risk, and also that once they stayed in forever. So they just basically took over. The whole network just centralized around like two or three giant nodes, right? They just had logos, marketing campaigns, and everything like that. So enter THORChain, we had to solve a hardcode problem of not just securing the own chain, but also securing Bitcoin and ETH. And what's really important is that the network can expand a contract with a number of nodes. So we had to solve for churning. And it wasn't just churning the validator set, but also churning out the TSS faults. So we decided that every 3 to 7 days, the network would kick out the oldest node, the baddest node, defined as having the most slash points, and the lowest bond node. We'll kick them out and pull in a fresh set of 3 nodes. And at the same time, it would regenerate all the MPC vaults. So regenerate the Bitcoin vault, Ethereum vault, Litecoin vault. And because it regenerated those vaults, it would need to move funds. So it would do it on-chain transactions to move the Bitcoin from the old vault to the new vault with the new set of nodes. And that would do a couple of things. One, it would prove solvency. It would prove that it could spend the Bitcoin. It could then prove that the Bitcoin is being migrated from an old vault system to a newer vault system. And 3, because we were churning the validator set, it was an awesome time to resync our requirements to be a validator, so that ensure that every single node had the latest software, the latest bond amounts, etc., etc. So it's like the heartbeat of the network was established in those 3 days churns, but also the ability for the network to say, catch me if you can. It would keep moving. You couldn't lock down those validators because the network would just kick out the old ones and add new ones all the time. So it became this kind of like the catch me if you can scenario. And that's really important because at some stage, the network, some external pressures could be applied to a set of nodes. And if the network was centralized around them and stagnated, then how do those nodes leave in an orderly fashion? But instead, THORChain constantly kicks out old nodes, constantly brings in new nodes. So every 3 days, it just refreshes the validator set, proves solvency, and allows nodes who need to leave, and nodes to come in. So that's churning. There's a lot more layers to it, but do you have any specific questions about that?
Actually, questions and comments. That's really cool because I should say that in Cosmos, I would say that most chains are in the condition you described EOS in years ago, where basically the network is quite centralized around the largest nodes. And actually, if you look at, I don't know if you guys tried to mitigate this at all, but very frequently it's only a couple of validators that need to stop operating to halt the chain. The default settings anyway for Tendermint is if 1/3 of vote power isn't voting, then the chain will literally just stop making blocks. And so if you look at even some rather large Cosmos chains like Kava, that happens. So like Kava, I believe it's two, but it might be three validators. If they stop operating, then the chain will stop making blocks. So that's my comment on how it's cool. And then my question is, in the marketplace for validation on Thor, did did a condition evolve where the validators are truly just infrastructure providers?
Right. So a couple of things there is, as you identified, the network will halt if one third of its validators go offline. And if two-thirds of validators agree to do something, the network is forcibly moved in that direction with or without the rules. So there's those two critical states: one third plus one halting, and two-thirds can change the rules. And by changing the rules, they will kick out any non-conforming nodes. So those are critical thresholds. And like you were saying, if one third of those nodes go offline, they actually not just can't produce blocks, but they lose their key shares, and so all the Bitcoin and ETH is lost. So that's why the network instead tries to constantly churn, constantly refresh vaults, constantly run away from a stagnation of the validator set, stagnation of the bond, and also stagnation of those vaults. So 3 days is probably the minimum. At one point, we pushed it to 7 days, and node operators were like, too slow, too slow. We like actually the fast churn. So I think the node operators voted back down to 3 days again. They actually like the fast churn because it means if they can quickly get out, do some maintenance, get back in again.
That's interesting.
There's some other networks. Yeah, they love the fast churns, and because if they want to go offline to quickly check something out, they're only offline for 3 days, and then you're not earning rewards for 3 days, and then they can get back in again. So they love the 3 days. We may actually never move away from 3 days. Early on, my thesis was 7 days. Like this kind of once a week churn, as in like every Monday morning the network churns. But so we tried that, and the nodes were like, no, go back to 3 days. So there you go. Some other networks do 30-day churns. For example, chain flip. So we're watching that. I think 30 days is a little bit too long, but we'll see because you have less refresh of the set. So yeah, fast churns. Churning is very difficult. When we first started the network, there was so many problems involved in churning. It was one of the hardest things, and our philosophy was if it's really hard, do it a lot, because then by doing it a lot, you solve all the hardcore problems and faster. So churning was hard, so we just did a lot every 3 days. So the next part of your question was infrastructure. So at this point in time, there's a lot of nodes have moved away from like Google Cloud and Amazon, and they run bare metal because the biggest cost to a node operator is actually server costs. And if you run a bare metal setup, it might cost you $5,000 of gear, but then you can amortize that cost over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and your operational expenses go down massively. So people are saying, oh, Amazon, Google Cloud, the whole network's going to get centralized on these service providers. Well, actually, most node operators have now invested in bare metal just purely to increase their own margins. So that stuff works. Now then, the last aspect of your question: who are node operators, and what is their role in the system? So originally, because these nodes are protecting hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin, ETH, and whatnot, they had to have provided their own capital. Because if they put up their own capital, then $2 in bond secures $1.50 in liquidity. They're not going to steal. So very early on, it was mandated node operators had to run the entire node because someone will come in with 10 million, 20 million rune, bite off markets, at like sub $1, and then quickly take over the network in a civil attack. However, we've slowly moved away from it to the point where, like today, with these 100 nodes with huge amount of decentralization, it's really impossible for you to walk out there and buy enough rune to then attack the network. So you will see over time relaxing of some of those early requirements around bond providers. We may even go to a point where there's like you can have unlimited bond providers to a node. It's not a focus right now because the network is over secured. There's heaps of nodes, heaps of bond. It's not a focus for now. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, actually, it's incredibly interesting. I didn't pay a lot of attention to THORChain because I was pretty IBC obsessed, right? But actually, what THORChain ended up doing while I was not paying attention to it is fascinating because And I assume that most of the people in the audience are Thor community members, but like the thing that really blew my mind was when I figured out that Thor was actually interfacing direct, like each validator needs to run a node for each of the supported networks, or how does that interface work?
Yeah, so there's such a thing called an eclipse attack. So if you run a large bit of money and like an exchange, your state of the network, your view on the network is just there's no like global mempool or like sorry, there's no like mempool or single defined network state of Bitcoin. Let's just take for example Bitcoin,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's no single like what you think Bitcoin is based on your view of the network, your own mempool, your own network state. And so you sync with as many nodes, Bitcoin nodes as possible, and you think what you're observing at the network is correct, and it will eventually be correct if you have good network topology, but it may not be true. And so what that means is if you run a large exchange and I hook a whole bunch of attack nodes directly into you, I figure out which IP address you are, and I like, I surround you with fake Bitcoin nodes, and then I take over and I sync a fake mempool and I sync a fake network state to you, you will be none the wiser. You will start thinking that Bitcoin transactions are occurring that never get populated to the rest of the network. It's called an eclipse attack. I basically have eclipsed you. And you lose sight of what actually everyone else in the world thinks about Bitcoin. And then I make a large Bitcoin deposit in your exchange. When you go, thanks for 1,000 Bitcoin, here's your credit. And then I swap it to I don't know, ETH and withdraw. And then suddenly I go, and I basically rug you by doing an eclipse attack. So that's a massive threat to THORChain because anyone can try an eclipse attack. If the whole network just synced its network state with just, I don't know, the blockchain API or the mempool.space API, which you can do, then the developer that runs mempool.space could rug the entire network. The developer that runs blockshare.com could rug all of THORChain. That's wild. That's why THORChain does not sync to any RPC, and any cross-chain liquidity protocol that uses RPC without a valid reason is risking the entire network. And there are a couple of them out there, and they should be immediately listening to this and going, "What am I doing?" Because they are risking their entire network by syncing to RPCs. Literally, their entire network is literally some dude, some developer somewhere that's got nothing at stake, with a single keystroke can rug the network. So don't use RPC unless it's for a reason. So as a result, THORChain nodes run full nodes of every single connected chain to avoid this eclipse attack. There is no RPCs anywhere. So RPC stands for remote procedure call. So like you might sync up to Infura and use RPC for Ethereum. That's an option, but then Infura can rug your network. So there is one exception to this, and that's we're going to move in a direction of supporting Ethereum L2s via RPC. And that just kind of like undoes everything I just said. But my flip side is that Ethereum L2s are actually more or less centralized. So like we've got this really decentralized approach to hooking up to a really centralized database. So then, but who cares? So instead, we are going to scale faster across the Ethereum L2s. We're just going to choose like 3 RPC providers who don't know each other, and the nodes basically double tap across some RPC providers. Large node operators may instead choose to skip RPC altogether for these L2s and run their own full nodes. That's their own choice. But it means we can probably add like 5 L2s in one go very quickly by doing RPC instead of doing full nodes. So that answers that question.
Yeah, it does, and that's a very thorough and interesting answer too. Now, here's a question. Now, do I understand correctly that you guys are adding IBC in the near or mid future?
So when IBC, so IBC is not supported on THORChain's current Cosmos version. It is supported on THORChain's current Cosmos version, but it's the old IBC. It's the old IBC that's basically not feature doesn't have the features needed that THORChain can take use of. The latest Cosmos, I think 0.48 and beyond, and the latest IBC has everything THORChain needs for it to be useful and for us to actually start an IBC journey. So then THORChain needs a hard fork, and the hard fork is scheduled for in the next month or two. So the hard fork allows THORChain to shed a whole bunch of other technical debt. It flattens the THORChain state machine state, so it's fastest thinking for Thor node operators. Purges out 2 years of transactional history unless you're an archive node. Upgrades Cosmos to the latest version. Upgrades IBC to the latest version. In fact, the latest Cosmos version actually supports Coinbase Rosetta. I think it's called something different these days.
Yeah.
Coinbase Rosetta means wink, wink, nudge, nudge, bit of alpha, but supporting Coinbase Rosetta can tick a few other boxes. Anyway, moving on. So we're going to upgrade, and then the question is, what are we going to do with the IBC? So Rune should only be used in its own protocol. It's a security asset and it's a liquidity asset. So we're not really interested in exporting Rune anywhere. Since about to get deprecated for trade assets. And once again, trade assets are only really useful on THORChain's network itself. The next one is derived assets, so like Thor.Bitcoin or Thor.ETH, which is used as a collateral for loans. Well, it's used as an accounting trick to count collateral when you deposit into the network. So then what would be the point of exporting it? Again, there's no point there. Finally, Tor, which is THORChain stablecoin. What's the point of exporting Tor to other networks when it's actually most useful in THORChain network itself? So long story short, even though THORChain will support IBC, there's actually no need for THORChain to export any of its tokens outside the network. However, one aspect of IBC that we will explore is aggregation. So you'll be able to swap from a long tail Cosmos token across Axelar or even an EVM network, and Axelar will be able to, via IBC, call into THORChain's message deposit or message send, which invokes a THORChain swap in the direction. So that just means, just by enabling IBC and working with Axelar, a giant aggregation sweep can occur in one go. So that's why we're excited about IBC. And it's not the traditional approach, because we've always approached this tech stack not for the sake of doing things for doing tick boxes. We only do them if it benefits the feature set that THORChain can ultimately give to its users, but also does not void the principles of security that have been baked into the network. So IBC is coming, and IBC will be used, and it'll be used specifically for aggregation.
That really specific use is awesome. There's a lot of focus in the IBC stack on just moving tokens around, but it can be used for all kinds of different secure communication. And so that's a very interesting remix approach, which actually, after reviewing the Thor code base a couple of months ago, what I learned is that, in fact, a lot of Thor is a really interesting remix approach. One of my favorite Cosmos chains architecturally, actually.
Awesome, thank you. Well, actually, THORChain first launched before even Cosmos. It's where we started building on Cosmos SDK before even Cosmos Hub had launched back in early 2018. Cosmos Hub didn't launch until February 2019. So we took a very beta state machine stack, and it just, every time you guys upgraded, which is fine, it meant that we had to constantly chase. Eventually, we stopped chasing the upgrades, grabbed a Cosmos state machine version, and then just went with it.
I noticed.
And we yeah. But no, we're catching up. Obviously, the Cosmos state machine technology, even in 2018, was the most advanced state machine stack out there. To this day, you could not convince me to switch. I mean, a lot of people go, "Oh, you should use fork substrate and rebuild in Rust and blah blah blah." It's like, well, why? I mean, the Cosmos state machine stack gives you everything. And it's the most mature. I mean, there are occasionally some P0s that pop through. I mean, there was the IBC P0 recently, but it's the most battle hardened. And the universe is adversarial. You kind of want a protocol that's been out in the arena for such a long time, so it's dealt with all the issues and whatnot. So yeah, Cosmos is great, and we love supporting it, and we will continue to do so.
Nice.
In a more involved manner.
Nice. When I look at the comparative landscape for consensus, what I find is that there's really not another good place, group of projects, let's say, to get that full finality piece from. The other features you can, although ABCI is also really a very potent piece of tech. Because I've been looking at the Cosmos stack and wondering kind of how it evolves and what are the what are the critical aspects of it? And what I actually came out with was full finality, ABCI, and then like the IBC type features that you can get because of those.
100%. And what was really disappointing about Terra Luna Crash is like the Terra ecosystem at that time 2 years ago was epic, and I was really rooting for a winning Cosmos state machine with amazing user experience, which Terra gave you, that showed the power of Cosmos. And unfortunately, the whole thing blew up because there was one too many lies told about the back end of it. But it was so it it worked. It was amazing. You jump on Anchor and flick around a mirror, and everything was fast and blah blah blah. And the developers loved it, and there was this huge ecosystem blowing up. I'd like to see that again. I'd love to see a giant Cosmos chain deliver these amazing, full stack DeFi features. Hopefully that's Osmosis and Kajira heading all in the right direction
Yeah,
to bring the Cosmos State Machine community back into the forefront. I think that's yeah. I mean, Binance Chain about to ditch their Cosmos chain, and Kronos, I believe, was originally a Cosmos chain, but I think they're moving to more of a like an L2 direction. So yeah, I mean, I love Cosmos. It works. It's great. It's easy to use. It's easy to build on. It's easy to fork and deploy. There should be more chains, and this needs to be a big flagship chain that does a lot of things. One little disappointing thing about the Cosmos Hub, Atom, is it doesn't really do much. I mean, there could be so much more done with Atom, that main chain. Like just start adding swaps on it. But the problem is, it's kind of ossified itself too quickly, and it lost its leader. It
yeah,
doesn't really have that kind of direction, which is really disappointing. And people are like tugging at it and trying to push in different directions, and no one knows what they're doing. Well, everyone knows where it should go, but there's kind of like no clear direction. So it's
yeah.
disappointing.
The protocol owned liquidity play centered around the community pool is, in my opinion, quite disappointing. Um, 'Cause I don't see how spending, because that chain also has a very large community pool, a large amount of funds that have been set aside through taxes on people's staking rewards. And unfortunately, I think that becomes a problem if that starts getting used at scale for POL, and that's unfortunately the current plan.
I think they should just go be a full up IBC routing hub. They should have swaps. They should bring all the assets onto Atom. Give full stack DeFi like right there and then. Give swaps, give lending, give collateral, give savers or whatever. Just go all in. There are just so many examples of how to do it correctly out there. Fork this, fork Uniswap V3, fork Arbe, whatever. Just go all in DeFi. Because everything I've seen in the last 8 years in crypto is like people want financial features, financial instruments on chain. That's the point of these blockchains. The most useful application of these decentralized ledgers with open source code and open source logic is to build financial contracts around stable coins and swapping and etc. So just do that, and don't be like a a backyard with no backyard animals in it. Just do something. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'd love to see that. And it's not THORChain's place to do that, by the way. THORChain is specifically a state machine with a very narrowly defined application, which is cross-chain swaps. In fact, so much of the code base is tied up in vault management and churning and slashing and stuff like that. It's like literally, I think there's like 100,000 lines of code, and like most of that is just vault logic and a very small amount. In fact, there's only like 5 lines of code for swaps. That's wild, right?
It is.
The rest of it is like
It's
inbound
incredible.
processing and outbound processing. It's nuts. I like you could spool up a Cosmos chain that supports IBC, so you get all that for free, and you write 5 lines of code to do a swap contract and like 5 lines of code to do like lending or whatever. It's so simple. It's so risk free as long as you have the right design around it. So yeah, so it's not THORChain's purpose to do that. Actually, it doesn't want to do that. It needs to do something else in a very different direction.
Yeah, well, I'm finding that what Thor is really moving toward is a permissionless finance. Um, That's where I see it going. Now, you might have a you might have a more intimate view on that. In fact, I'm certain you do. But and the reason I see it going like that is that it's interfacing directly with all these different chain nodes, giving really unique feature set.
Yeah, 100%. Decentralized exchanges will replace centralized exchanges. Not a matter of. It's just a matter of time. This cycle / next cycle. Let's go. And so one of these decentralized liquidity protocols will crack 100 billion. Which one will it be? In my opinion, it's going to be the one that works first and foremost, that solves is secure and has a lot of TVL with a lot of swaps and a lot of integrations. And THORChain is definitely heading in that direction. And no one's, we've got full burners on, and I can't describe just how much we've got the burners on right now. And it's like a one horse race at the moment. We'd like to bring our competition along with a collaborative ecosystem along, but like it's from my vantage, my viewpoint, and I've been part of this project for 8 years. It's kind of won already. And all it needs to do is not have a critical fund loss event or a P0 or P1 and whatnot. Just got to stay the course. Stay the course. And it's just going to do just fine. And it's going to hit, those crazy numbers I keep talking about. But anyway, so more on the network design
Yeah.
that you might be interested in. So we've got the churning. We've got the small amount of proof of like delegation of bond. There's no logos anywhere. The nodes are only identified by the public key, the IP address, which is actually can be a fake IP address. I'm not sure many people realize that. But nodes can disclose any IP address. They don't need to disclose their own IP address. It used to be the fact that the nodes address book used to be on chain, but that's actually still broadcasted into Tendermint and via seed nodes. So nodes can be completely anonymous. They can have proxies. They can fake where they are in the world. They can be running a GCP proxy, but have all the nodes in, I don't know, Mongolia, doesn't matter, on bare metal. Like it's actually a lot more difficult than people say. People look at the node distribution of IP addresses and go like 1/3 are in Amazon and 2/3 in or whatever. That's completely. There's so much plausible deniability there because a lot of these nodes are running bare metal with proxy servers that it's like a $5 a month proxy server on AWS, but the bare metal is hiding away in a basement in Adelaide in South
So I've
Australia.
done
You know,
exactly that, and it works really well. Where you just pipe all your external traffic to some other IP. It's also useful because you can get around some of the limitations of having a machine actually at your home by doing that, because that also provides you with like a raw public IP address to give people to.
yes, correct. And another fun fact is all Thor nodes can have all the full nodes available as wallet endpoints. So like a Thor node has a Bitcoin full node, a Litecoin full node, Ethereum full. They can all be put up for wallets. But also all Thor nodes can run Midgards. And the Midgard is like this. The way we built Midgard is just ingest THORChain events. And if you run a Midgard, it will almost in the same way that the runes protocol that Casey Rodarmer built, it just syncs off transactional events, and the final state of Midgard is deterministic. In fact, all of Midgard is deterministic. You can actually rebuild a Thor node just from Midgard, which is wild. And every Thor node can run a Midgard. And lastly, every Thor node runs like like a quotes endpoint. So all you just need is a single Thor node cluster, and you're up and running with a full exchange uh, infrastructure layer. It's wild. I don't think many people realize that. And so you don't even need to hit 9realms endpoints or your THORSwap endpoints. You can just deploy your own node and just run all off. You can run an entire wallet layer just off your own node, and that with very little risk. So yeah, and I mean, almost to the point where we were at one point, the wallet layer was bouncing around between different nodes. So even the wallets could randomly select from Thor nodes and deliver to the user in a decentralized way a verified endpoint to send the money to. So there's multiple layers of decentralization on Thor node that not many people really can wrap their heads around.
That's crazy.
We built this protocol from the very start. Yeah, we built the protocol with the single goal of resisting the craziest attack from all directions from the very start. There were no shortcuts in the way that this protocol was built. It's designed to tolerate anything that the universe can throw at it, from the very start as well. So it's been done correctly.
Well, thank you so much for this walkthrough, dude. Was there anything else you wanted to go over? Because actually, like, I just wanted to learn about churning, but I learned a ton here today.
Yeah, I mean, so the network sits at 100 nodes. I personally don't even know less than 20% of the network in terms of like node operators. There are like I occasionally I meet, I travel places and run THORChain meetups, and someone's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a node operator." I'm like, "Holy shit, I did not know that." And they go, "Yeah, we love the network." So the network was designed with to have zero altruism. So altruism is a quality where you will do something with a long-term outset. So like be charitable, you're altruistic because you have this kind of like 10, 20 year, or like you're investing in your own moral compass. So typically networks are not very, like, you can't design around altruism because there's this like quality that you can't directly measure. But a lot of networks are actually relying on altruism to survive. So that is like nodes won't hack the network because they like it, right? Whereas THORChain goes, no, every single node is actually a malicious hacker that wants to take down the network. That's how it treats every single node today. So it won't accept a single dollar over the bond limit, as an example. But as we're learning, there's just so much altruism already on this network, and we've seen it time and time again. So what that means is we can relax some of the conditions around this network, and then add a bit more flexibility and buffer around how much TVL the network secures, because we started from a position of absolute. Now we can relax. Whereas other protocols are starting from a position of assume all the nodes are semi-honest, and then they're trying to like add rules. So it's like, yeah, it's in a good position where it assumes every single node can be malicious at every single time, and the network still runs like that. So honestly, the biggest issue for THORChain that could generate fund loss events is just the complexity. Bugs get through. I think the MPC protocol is pretty tight where it is today, and we've got a pretty good bounty pipeline with the security researcher community, and we've paid bounties out, so they know if they find an issue with TSS, they can just immediately tell us and they get paid, rather than try and run and hack the network. Yeah, so we've got a good bug bounty program, and occasionally bugs slip through, but the network has the tools at their disposal to respond. So I think we'll wrap it up there, unless we maybe take one or two questions from the audience. And
Oh, yeah,
Jacob,
that'd be
thanks
cool.
thanks for turning this around so quickly.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Let's see, how do I how do I invite speakers? Here we go. Does anyone want to ask a question from the audience? Hey, why don't we get Crystal on, if Crystal's listening? Not sure a question. Someone do an emoji to wave at me if you want to speak, and I'll add you. If not, then Jacob, I'll take one last question from you, and then we'll go.
Okay. What is the biggest? And let's go beyond THORChain. What do you feel is the biggest risk to proof of stake networks today?
The biggest risk to proof of stake networks today is centralization of stake and stagnation. That's it. And you have to have churning, which is actually the reason for this call. Like Cosmos SDK should implement churning right into the SDK. It is so important to be able to like churn evaluate set regularly. Like literally set it as a network parameter. I want a 3-day churning network, or I want a 7-day churning network. That, like, it's so important. Else the network stagnates. And we've got Crystal up as a speaker, so go Crystal for a question. If she can
Hey guys, hello.
unmute
Hi
herself.
everyone.
Hello, Crystal. You're dialing in from
Hello?
Singapore. Crystal,
Yes.
why did you choose your direction of an optimism fork instead of Cosmos chain?
Yeah, I think, we've been sort of evaluating whether, we want to build on a Cosmos ecosystem or Optimism or even, Polygon, right? for quite some time. But I think just sort of looking at the optimism ecosystem as a whole, I think a lot of our values fundamentally sort of align with that. One part of it, which I think, has led to this decision as well, is that, optimism allows us to do zero gas fee sort of transactions on the network, which allows us to really scale the use cases of immersive streaming and gaming quite quickly. So we're really excited about it. And just as an introduction for everyone, I'm the co-founder of Boat OS and Boat Plus. It's an immersive streaming platform, and we're partnered with Bloomberg, Hisense TVs, and we're really excited to be integrating on-chain transactions and gaming activations. And JP has been a great advisor for us thus far. Looking forward to collaborating further. Certainly, I think there's going to be some element of THORChain coming online on Boat Plus as well.
Yeah, and potentially Voltisig. By the way, Jacob, not sure
Yes.
if you know, but Voltisig supports Atom today. So, Jacob, go to voltisig.com, download the test flight. It's going to be live in the app stores soon,
Okay.
and you will have the first ever highly useful threshold signature wallet, or basically multi-sig for Cosmos, Kujira, and a whole bunch of other Atom-based chains.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, no excuses. Download it today. Get your funds off Signal signature wallets. Move your funds into Voltisig. Easy peasy. And we'll support
I have to
Voltisig
say
for a bot chain as
something.
well.
Yeah,
Go.
I have something to say about that. I absolutely love Valtisig. Naturally, I got introduced to it by JP. I actually pretty much threw away all my ledgers already. It's an amazing product. Love it.
Yep. I've been dragging our ledgers for 8 years, since 6, 7 years. And I'm finally, honestly, going to be ditching my ledgers and going full Voltisig. I mean,
Yeah.
it's threshold signatures. You can have 2 or 3. It's full
Yep.
DeFi compatible. You can easily
Mm,
handle treasuries, funds, your private
mm,
portfolio. And if you
mm.
want a feature, come talk to me. By the way, it's fully open source, audited. There's not going to be any tracking, any of that nonsense. Yeah, you're never going to get your email address or your real world shipping address docs to hackers. There's not never going to be a line of code that will take your funds, your private keys, and I
I'll
can't say
tell
the
you the
same
feature
for
request right now. The feature
Go.
request is to have the chat that the Multisig centers around. Okay, so think about traditional community funds multisigs, right? Well, they're always run out of some like Signal or Telegram chat, right? And my feature request is actually to have that chat in the wallet application. And I'm gonna jump it up just one more notch, because actually I had started to build this, but I'd love to just see it built. I was just built, when you just build something because you need it. Well, okay, look at all the existing chat apps. There's actually one thing.
Jacob, be careful what you wish for, because I'm actually one of the original seed advisors and investors of Get Session, which has 1 million active users. It's fully encrypted, run on a network of 2,000 distributed nodes, and it's a fully featured chat app. And be careful what you wish for, because I could easily add Voltisig integration into a session, and you'll be able to do exactly that. You'll be able to have Voltisig integration in a chat app. So be careful what you wish for.
Excellent.
By the way, everyone should download Get Session right now. It's a fork of Signal, but it's open source, audited, run by decentralized, incentivized group of nodes. It's about to get a token upgrade called to the Cent token. You don't want to miss out. There'll be an airdrop, and then it'll be a full makeover of the token, and I'm part of that as well. So get in it, and it's got 1 million users. Wild. And the growth strategy of the chat app is straight vertical. So jump on it. The features are only going to get better.
Doing it now.
The token's going to get better. Doing it. No excuses. Absolutely no excuses. And it's not run by dodgy Americans who spy on you. It's actually run by a decent set of Aussies.
That's the
try and do
concern
their best.
about Signal these days. And yes, because it's looking dodgy as hell right now.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure that everything I do stays undodgy. It stays legit, because that's who I am. Well, very good. Thanks, Jacob, for jumping on, and thanks to the community for jumping on so quickly as well. And thanks, Crystal, as well. So we'll talk to everyone soon.
See you later.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
See ya. Bye.
See you.